The Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, the little store with the big heart, Para Niagara at the Western Block, one of the top rated haunted destinations in Western New York, Dragonfly Art and Soul, metaphysical goods and classes, Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, paranormal, and much, much more. Hey everybody, welcome to the Black Cat Lounge. I am your most congenial host, Tim Shaw. And as you can tell, I have a special guest tonight. Because why? How do you know I have a special guest? I actually shaved the dome. That's right. I broke out the razor. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to look like a retrobate because this lady is so cool. I had the pleasure of meeting her in Toledo this year, and I loved her. Automatically, I loved her. And she's very, very knowledgeable. And she kind of definitely just blows me away with her knowledge, you know. So I'm looking forward to it. Things coming up, just real quickly, just let everybody know that I myself, Big Frank, the Lunker, and the little demon Heather from from Western Block will all be at the Mansfield Reformatory event this coming weekend. So if you're in the neighborhood and you do so feel that you've been naughty and perhaps need to be going into solitary confinement, we're there for you. It's an all-inclusive place. No. I'm not, and I promised that I wasn't going to bring my antique manacles, my leg manacles, which Frank really did like, but Frank is not right. My buddy Frank is a good guy. He's a good lunker. But anyway, let's bring on our guest, guys. There's just, you know what? There's so much that I've wanted to talk about. And so many of you guys know that I've been fascinated by the world of cryptozoology. I don't often get a chance to get out there and experience it. I don't often get a chance to have somebody that is so knowledgeable. Oh my God, this lady is so knowledgeable. She knocks my socks off. She really does. And I had put out, and I had told her before we came on the air, I had put out a call for someone to talk about the American werewolf / Dogman. And I mean, people just like recommended her left and right. And I just thought, oh my God, we've got to be able to put her on. So I have to introduce someone who is accomplished, who's so accomplished. And she's so busy. She just finished. As a matter of fact, just before she jumped on here, she had just finished a class with Patty Negri's school. And so she is so kind to make time for us tonight. She's an author. She's a sought-after speaker. Oh my God, she's a podcaster. She's a crypto and paranormal investigator. I love saying esoteric investigator. That's my new coin phrase. That's what I'm going to do. People that, are across the board. And she is also lead investigator. And this is what I love. Lead investigator of the North American Dogman project. Her books are Flying Crypto. Listen, I'm going to have her say the name because I can never say these things. I'm tongue-tied. I got a chance to talk to her earlier and I'm tongue-tied now. So you know that I'm really impressed with her. Please welcome Shetan Noir, the lady with the best name in the world. I love that name. You know what? It sounds like you should just have been born into a mystery novel. It was like, excuse me, Miss Noir, we have another mystery for you. Let's get Scooby-Doo and go. Hi, how are you? Thank you for being on tonight.
Well, thank you. And my goodness, I have been looking forward to this for weeks now, and we're finally here. And I am so thrilled to be on your show tonight, Mr. Shaw.
Now, don't call me Mister because that means I would
Oh,
have to have respect from people. So we have no respect, please. No
oh, okay.
respect. Before we go on, I murdered the name of the first book. Tell everybody the books.
Okay, so my two published books on cryptozoology are Lake Monsters and Odd Creatures of the Great Lakes and Flying Cryptids of the Midwest Beyond Mothman.
Exactly. And there's so many people that don't get the idea that, that what everybody thinks that there's two types of cryptids out there. Bigfoot and Mothman. That's it. That's it. They get the PR.
Yeah, yeah. There's certainly many other ones, including my favorites, the lake monsters. But we've got bipedals, we've got flying cryptids, we've got water cryptids, so land cryptids too, and
Yeah.
everything in between. So there's something spooky, scary, weird out there for everyone.
That's I always say that to people. Listen, you know what? Just because it doesn't go boo in the night does not mean that it's not interesting. We shouldn't be going out there researching it and looking at. Yours truly has been out in the field. Like I think my trekking boots are like at the point now where I think I have duct tape holding them together because we've field so much. But I do love it, and I don't get a chance to talk about it that much. Let's talk about something that you know. I want to start off. Uh, because I live so close to Lake Erie, and I have been out uh, at Lake Champlain looking for the champ, the sea serpent of Lake Champlain, which they think is a big eel or whatever. But being here in Lake Erie, the Lake Erie area, I often find that people they don't talk about it, but talk about any kind of these legends, but yet the whole Great Lakes system is full of these legends and lore.
Yes.
Do you do you think that so much of it is not talked about because of either again we go with the PR with the popular shoeless Joe running through the woods, or do you think that perhaps these creatures because of the depths of the lakes because they're all over but they are so deep that perhaps you just very seldom do they come to the surface. What's your take on that?
So there's many thoughts on our lake monsters. I like to refer to lake monsters as the Schrodinger's cats of the cryptid worlds because you can't
Bravo,
you
bravo!
can't
I love
prove that
that.
they're there, but you cannot disprove that they are there. So they're in that liminal space where yes, they can very much exist because we find weird and interesting things in bodies of water every day. Scientists, biologists, what
Right,
have you, zoologists find new species every single day in different bodies of water. So it's possible that anything could be there. And while we do have a lot more historical reports of lake monsters and weird things swimming in our Great Lakes, you have to remember that going back to the 1800s,
right.
we did not have as many watercraft, boats, ships, kayaks, ski-doos,
Yes,
water
yes, I
skiers,
agree with
fishing
you.
trawlers, steamboats on the Great Lakes as we do today. So, with all that surface activity, yes, your lake cryptids are going to be somewhat leery of coming towards the surface when there's a big boat or anything like that coming around because most of those boats have propellers, and propellers mean ouch. So they're going to stay away from the boats. And if they have any type of sensitivity to sonar, most of them will stay away from the boats because a lot of your current boats use sonar to detect
Correct.
debris on the lake bottoms. And especially if they're scanning for wrecks or anything like that. So your lake monsters are going to avoid that kind of scenario where either they're sensitive to sonar or they don't want to get hit by boats or anchors or fishing nets. And so I think over the generations, over the past few centuries, decades, our lake monsters have gotten smarter because the more we go out in the water, the less they want to interact with us.
True. That's true. And you know, it's funny because I have having been a docent up at Old Fort Niagara for a number of years. That was that was not only a fort and all that, but that actually was that was actually the explorer LaSalle's
Yes,
one of his base camps when they were building the Griffon, so that
yes.
they would go and so they could sail around Niagara Falls and head into the Great Lakes. And it's amazing when you start going back and you start looking at the history, the written history that was left behind. You start seeing all these different, you know, references to lake monsters. And my friends on the reservation, I live in Seneca country, and then we have the Tuscarora Reservation of the Iroquois Nation up here.
Yep.
They have such an unbelievable rich tradition of all these lake monsters that they still revere, and a lot of them are because again they used to one of their mainstays of food were eels, and some of these
Okay.
eels are huge back then, not so much now, but back
Right.
then they had to be gigantic. Do you think a lot of this has morphed? Because I've done a lot of work with urban legends and different mythology in this area. Do you think a lot of it has because of all that's happened before, it slowly has morphed into something else? Or do you think it's like just we're not just catching them yet?
So, one of the examples I use of what I call an amalgamation for the lake monsters of the Great Lakes is the great underwater panther in Abichu. And if you look at his description, they say he has horns like a moose, a head like a horse, um, scaled body, a whip-like tail with spikes on it. Sometimes he has wings, um, powerful front legs. But you look at those first two key elements, the horns like a moose and a horse-like head, and you start building a profile in your head of what this creature could look like. And then I come across reports from biologists and different newspaper clippings that they found orcas with moose inside their stomachs.
Wow. I've never heard of that.
So
That's amazing.
orcas do not come onto land to hunt moose. So
Right.
how would they get a moose? Well, here's something that a lot of people don't know unless they've come to my presentations and lectures on lake monsters. And that is that moose can dive up to 20 feet underwater to eat underwater vegetation.
I did not know that.
So imagine you're one of these Native American hunting parties. You're paddling along the lake shore, and all of a sudden, the water starts to boil, and out from the water explodes this animal.
Wow.
And it's thrashing and it sees you and it's not happy to see you. And suddenly it's trying to attack your canoe. And you and the other members in your canoe are paddling like crazy. And you finally get away from it. You get back to your camp and you're telling your chieftain and your shaman, "Ah, we saw the lake monster, the great underwater panther." And they say, "We warned you. We warned you not to take more than our tribe needed. You must have taken too much." And
Yep, that
that
makes
is
sense.
that's one of the um, things that they associate with the dragon or the amalgamation type lake monsters here in the Great Lakes. The Native American lake monsters is they are very critical and very punishing of greed. And so whenever someone took more than what they were allotted or what they needed, It's said that the lake monsters took great offense to that and would punish them by taking their lives, drowning them, and sinking the canoe and taking back everything that was taken from the lands. So when you have stories like that and you have understandings like that, that maybe these lake monsters were based on real living animals that people saw, but how many people are going to recognize that that moose that they see thrashing about in the woods and they're afraid of can actually go into the water and tip your canoe and drown everyone?
Wow. I never thought of that. I never thought of that. I never knew that. That's amazing to me. And it makes perfect sense because when we start looking at legends, 99.9% of all legends, unless you're like sitting in a bar somewhere making up some crazy tale, not that we would sit in a bar anywhere, you and I, but I mean, when you start thinking about it, all legends are like onions. And if you
Yes.
go and you peel them back, there's always a little bit of truth in there someplace.
Yep. There's a little grain of truth somewhere at the origin of that legend or that story
Right.
that it sprouted from, and you have to you have to research it back to its roots and look at all the different possibilities of where it could have came from
Right.
and
Right.
how it started.
Too many people, I think, have taken what we do at face value. Instead of actually going out there and applying, I hate to say this, but common sense to what they're doing, what we're looking at. I hate that because it's like insulting. Because I don't want to insult anybody. But I think what happens is too many people, even in the well, you know yourself, in the paranormal community, crypto community, too many people look at something at face value without trying to go and figure out a natural reason for it. And people are taking these things just too much in this day and age at face value. Do you think that the current fad, I'll just go fad, of the cryptozoology and paranormal shows and all that, do you think they're harming us or helping us when it comes to this? Because I know that it does shine a light on different things that we would never have been thinking about, but there's also a flip side to everything.
Yeah, so with the paranormal, I think it's become more mainstream and people are more likely to talk about their paranormal experiences, about ghosts, and they're more open to it. But with the cryptids, what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people cashing in on the cryptid craze. And it's almost become a way to gain popularity almost instantly. You show up on a show and suddenly everybody wants you at their Bigfoot convention. And are you qualified to talk about this? Maybe. Are you just cashing in on it because you suddenly have a name and you can, use that? I've seen some valid points for that, and I'm like, okay, so this person doesn't want to go on podcasts or do written interviews, but they want to go to Paracons so that they can make good money because they get paid for those Paracon
Wait a minute,
appearances.
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Shaitan, we make good money? Wait a minute. We got to think about
Well,
that.
but
But yeah, I
but
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
some of these more popular cryptid people are getting, like, a couple of dollars for their
Yeah.
appearances.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And I sit
You're right
back
about
because
that.
I do, I own my magazine publishing company, and paranormal, I can interview a lot of different people um, that are big names that people have seen on shows, at conventions, on podcasts. There's a surplus of paranormal people, not so much with the cryptid people. And unfortunately, it's the cryptid people that there's only a handful of them that the average person really, really knows. And when we're talking about magazine covers and centerfolds and stuff like that,
Mhm.
um, of giving them, their spotlight, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll do that." And then you send them the questions and you wait, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to do the interview now." And it's like, okay, that's
Yes.
very
Yes.
aggravating. So
Yes.
I've seen where the shows are both beneficial, but they're also a detriment because you have a lot of people cashing in on that. And now, don't get me wrong. They've been on the shows. They've said what they have to say, and now they're going to have to back up those claims for years.
Yes. Oh,
At
yeah, it
every
doesn't go
pair
away. It
at
doesn't
every
go away.
Bigfoot conference, at every, Paracon that they go to, and the moment that they say, well, maybe it's, not what we thought it was, maybe it's this, then they lose credibility.
Yes.
So they're going to have to, whatever they said on those shows, whatever they proclaimed, that is something that they're going to have to carry with them and continually talk about because people will keep bringing it up. And
Yep.
if you're
Yes.
going to tell a magazine or a podcast, oh, I'm so tired of talking about Bigfoot, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But then 2 months later, you're doing, library presentations and paracons talking about Bigfoot. Yeah, don't lie to me. I
Yeah.
know it's all about the dollar signs. So
Yeah, and you know what? That's a sad thing because too many people come up to me all the time and they're always like, "Well, you've got to be getting residuals." I said, "Well, I'm not a member of SAG, so I don't get residuals.
right,
You get a one-time fee, and and usually by the time you cash the check, you got enough for a tank of gas and lunch. By the time you're done, but too many people think that it becomes a money train,
right,
and it's not what we really wanted, guys. People like us would much rather go and not I know myself, I would rather see it kind of get a little bit more simpler, that we could take a step back a little bit and be able to go and I guess come into a little bit more of a truthful time where now it isn't because it's not about making money. It's not about putting soap in our
right.
in our bathroom or putting bread on the table. That has always been my thing. Listen, let's talk about you. Enough about me. Shaitan, let me ask you this. I'm a sucker for backstories. I love, when I get a new guest on, I always can't wait to ask them about why they got into this. Because I mean, I've been doing this since almost my whole life, with what I do. But what brought you? Well, talking to you in Toledo, I thought to myself, this is a normal lady. She's just a
Right.
very, very nice, normal lady. Why is she doing this stuff? Yeah. So tell everybody what it was, that wow or aha
So,
moment that brought you into
so,
this.
and I get asked this question all the time on podcasts. How did you get into cryptozoology? Well, my answer is when I was a younger girl between the ages of 9 and 10, my Midwestern family, I live in Michigan, our family vacations every year were camping. And this one
Ooh,
particular summer, my family decided on this campground. I believe it was called Crystal Lake Campground.
of course.
And and
Of course.
at this campground, now of course the lake is crystal clear. You can see the bottom of the lake at 20 feet of water. So, that would be pretty cool normally, but they also had an alligator penned up at the campground next to the check-in or the gift store or whatever you want to call it. They had an
Oh,
alligator
oh
in
my
like a
God.
10 by 15 pen with a cement, pond for it. And they would tell the kids, oh, we caught it in the lake. So 9-year-old me that summer was not going swimming or fishing on the fishing pier, in a boat, anything. Forget about it. I was
Oh
freaking
gosh.
out. Well, if that wasn't bad enough, one of the weekends that we were there, they decided to show for family movie night the Patterson Gimlin film with Patty in it and The Legend of
Oh,
Boggy Creek.
oh my God.
So 9-year-old me watches these, and now I've come to the realization that no, there's not just one Bigfoot that's out west somewhere. They're everywhere. They're probably in the woods around the campground. So I'm like hiding in the women's bathroom. These two older ladies walked me back to our truck camper. And after that, I became a lifelong obsession with anything that was at that time termed New Age. So back in those days, New Age was Atlantis, Bermuda Triangle,
Oh
Loch
my
Ness
gosh,
Monster,
yes.
Bigfoot, you know, all that stuff, paranormal,
Yes.
parapsychology, all of that was under the term New Age. And got myself a subscription to Fate magazine and just started researching and reading everything I could on everything. And yeah, 9 year old me is now 40 some year old me. And, the only difference is I have teal hair now.
Well, here's the thing. Did you ever think that you would ever turn into Kolchak the Night Stalker?
No,
I
no, I didn't. But I do use so when I go on trips and I throw my dogs in the car and grab my best friend and she's like, "Where are we off to?" And I'm like, "Adventures." But the we either call it adventuring or Scooby Dooing because we're looking for haunted locations, cryptids, fossil hunting,
Oh
gem
my
mining,
gosh. Oh my God, love all
you
that.
know, Civil War or Revolutionary War battlefields, or historical sites, um, unique food locations. So and that's where I'm headed is, every, week long trip is like, okay, here's where we're going today and, let's see what we can find and we're off and running.
Isn't that, you know what? It's I think that's keeps you young, and it recreates that wonderment that you had as a kid. And I think
Oh
that's
yes.
excuse me, in our society, I think we've lost that wonderment that we had as children. And it's because we're just getting inundated with data and
Yep.
the PC and all the politics and everything. And I think by what we do by doing these adventures, because I never call them like a trip or anything. It's like, oh, we're on a new adventure.
Right.
I think it brings back that wonderment. My poor wife and I will be driving down the road. We were going to Ithaca, New York. All of a sudden, I stopped, turned around. She's like, "Oh my god, what happened? Oh my god!" And there was like this recreation of a fake giant that they had used for like PR stuff back in the
Nice.
1800s. Like when the Cardiff Giant and all that was around.
Yep.
A lot of people did stuff like that. There it was underneath a little awning, and you have to stop and you have to look at it and you have to understand
Right.
it. And it's like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This just made my entire
Mhm.
vacation. My wife will sit there and go, it's nice. It's nice. Now
Yeah.
let's go to the resort. But I love that. But it brings back that wonderment. Now let's talk about Dogman. Dogman.
Sure.
You know, I the reason why I've been fascinated by Dogman is I remember being up at when I was growing up. We had again we go camping, and this campground had 12 permanent campers
Okay.
on about I believe it was close like 225 acres, woodlands and lakes and everything. And I always remember I came upon a deer, a kill, and me being a kid, not realizing that it had been a pack of coyotes or whatever, automatically in my brain, Lon Chaney Jr. is walking around on the full moon, and going at night and getting a snack or something on the trail, and eating partial of a deer. And I mean that, and ever since then, it always stuck with me. And the whole idea, and of course, I mean Linda Godfrey. I cut my teeth with like Linda Godfrey's the Beast of Bray
Yep.
Road and all that, and it was. I just thought that was just so amazing to me, and uh, the transformation. And later on, of course, we got into the whole philosophical and psychological reasons uh, of what was going on, but it was just amazing to me. And then one day I started hearing about actual dogmen.
Yes.
And it just, I mean, I personally never realized that again, coming back to like that, like 9 or 10 year old me going, oh my God, there are such things. And then being able to, and of course, like In Search of and all those great shows where they were interviewing people and talking
Uh-huh.
about it,
Hmm.
and then running into more crypto people, and with what I was doing and hearing more and more stories, they became far more and more fascinating and realistic to me.
Yep.
When we talk about the dogmen, are are we talking, let's say, a shapeshifters, or what are we talking about
So
when we
there
talk?
are, so I talk about this in my Dogman presentation. So Dogman is a canine creature that can is usually bipedal, but it can go down on to all fours, be quadruped, but it is always a canine creature. It doesn't go from human
Right,
to canine form. That is your supernatural werewolf or your
right.
folklore werewolf like the Rougarou. But there are also your skinwalkers who are shapeshifters. Now, that is Native American magic. One of the most powerful magics ever. And trust me when I say you do not want to encounter a Native American shaman who's a shapeshifter.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
They
I
are
know
very
I know a little bit
powerful.
about that. Yeah.
Um, they are very powerful. I am a hoodoo practitioner. I also practice folk magic. I would never pit myself against a Native American shaman because I don't understand their magic.
Right.
Okay? Their magic is earth based.
Yep.
They're working with something much more powerful than anything I can ever tap into. So, what they can do as a skinwalker or a shapeshifter, that is why the Native Americans very rarely talk about
Hmm.
skinwalkers and shapeshifters
Hmm.
because it's that taboo. So that is something completely different than what the dog man is. Just like the Wendigo is something completely different than what the dog man is or what a skinwalker is. So you've got somewhat similar creatures, but they're all very, very different. And that's where we have to have classifications put in because a lot of people think that your werewolves, like in Twilight, change from human form back into canine. Okay, that is virtually impossible.
Hmm.
The only way I say that it can be done is if you are a skinwalker and you are of Native American shaman magic and you know how to do that.
Right.
And that is
I
a
agree.
magic process that they go through. But your dog man is a canine creature. It's either interdimensional or it's extraterrestrial. It's not natural to Earth because we don't have anything in the fossil record that says that there should be an upright walking canine. Bigfoot, we do. We've got that wonderful shrubbery of a family tree for primates that us humans are on, chimpanzees are on, bonobos are on, great apes,
Yep.
orangutans,
Yes.
chimpanzees. Bigfoot is in there.
Was it
Dog,
gigantic? I can't remember the name. Gigantic? Was it
Giganthrolopithecus.
Lepica? Yes. Forget it. I can't say it, but thank you for saying that.
Um, but with Dogman, there's nothing. And people will say, well, there's the dire wolf. Well, here's the problem paleontologists don't even think that the dire wolf was actually a canine, just like they don't think that the saber-toothed tiger was actually a feline. They're in this weird subcategory that's between them. where you would probably find things like the hyenodont and
Mhm.
things like that, where it's this kind of like the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger. It's one of these weird species that was in and of its own. So where did the
Correct,
dog man
yes.
come from? If it's not in our fossil record here on Earth, then it has to be either interdimensional or extraterrestrial, which means they're coming here for their own, intentions, whether it's to observe the human race or to hunt us, but they're here on their own volition and they're observing us, hunting us, and interacting with us on their own terms.
I got a question about that. Now, this is something that uh, I kind of adhere to. Do you feel that when we have sightings of dogmen, we have like a series of sightings. Usually it's never just one. It's usually a series. Do you think that it has anything to do with the UFO flap? Because I know here in not Western New York, but up in down in Pennsylvania at Presque Isle down
Yes,
in '66, you had a UFO. You had a UFO Bigfoot sighting, and
yes.
I mean, we know that there's a lot of it that crosses over. Do you think that has a lot to do with it? Do you think that has that's like something that really kind of plays into it?
It very could well be. I do know that the Bigfoots and the Dogmen do not interact very well. Bigfooters from around the country have come forward and said that they will be documenting and studying Bigfoot activity in a territory for years, and suddenly it stops. But then they start to notice other activity that is not Bigfoot, and they believe it's Dogman. And generally, what they say is when a dog man or a pack of dog men move into Bigfoot territory, all the Bigfoots get up and leave. They
I
just
wonder.
abandon that territory and they go somewhere else. And generally, it's because you have mothers with young offspring, and it's very hard for a mother or mothers with offspring to protect all of their offspring, everybody in their family group, from a pack of predators.
Well, it's true. That's true. And people don't realize that when we start talking about anything that's canine, we're talking about wolves, coyotes, even foxes up to a certain point, uh, that they will surround you and they will, they have a pack mentality,
Yes.
especially when they're there, to go and try to separate a young or an injured away from the pack. We were out in the Allegheny, the Allegheny State Forest, out there looking for, out there minding our own business, looking for Bigfoot, just hanging out. But we, with our IR cameras, we actually could see uh, the eye shine of the packs of coyotes and how they would surround us. And
Hmm.
that makes perfect sense because now if dogmen actually go and they have those type of characteristics, they're going to go and they're going to use them.
Oh, yes.
That makes perfect sense. Wow.
Yeah, because it is, it's proven in nature that a solitary predator fails 90% of the time hunting. A pack very rarely
Right.
fails
Right.
because they have a established, well thought out hunting strategy for taking down different types of prey, whether that's a full bull moose or a
Yeah.
deer or a
True.
rabbit. They, they know how to hunt and how to kill their prey. And when you're dealing with a pack mentality, you're dealing with generally the subadults to the very strong alpha adults. Generally, your older adults and your very young adults are not included in the hunt.
Right.
But everybody from the year olds to the 12-year-olds is running down that moose and chasing that moose from a different angle till that moose breaks a leg or falls or they take it down. And even, it's been documented that even moose swimming out into lakes, does not save it. It does not save it at all. The wolves will just swim out and bite chunks off of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. Uh, and again, I mean, I'm big into inter I won't say interplanetary, but I will say that I do believe that there is a huge correlation between extraterrestrial activity and cryptozoology. I believe that really it works almost hand in hand sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, and I can't believe. I wish I had known that you were in the fossils because we could
I
have talked
love
Devonian
fossils.
we could have talked Devonian epoch in Toledo. You know what
Oh,
I mean? I love
oh,
that. Oh my
you
god, I
mean
love
like
that.
Dunkleosteus that you have there in Cleveland?
Oh
The
my god.
Cleveland Jail. Oh my God. Yes, I am a full blown dinosaur, prehistoric creature, fossil loving crazy nut. Um,
I love that.
any dinosaur exhibit I can go to, I'm at it. I love my dinosaurs. I even have a magazine called Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures. I love dinosaurs, paleontology, fossils. That is just good stuff to me.
Listen. I won a bronze medal in 8th grade at the Buffalo Museum of Science for my paleontology exhibit. So I mean, it's like,
Hey,
yeah, I'm
nice.
into. As you can tell, I am a collector, but I have so much that I have so it's like I have so many rocks in this house. It's like insane. But hey, listen, back to what we're talking about. It's funny, guys. Sorry, because Shatan and I have so much in common. So we go off. I just go off on tangents with her. Let's talk about the Nain Rouge. It's something that
Yes.
I knew about when I was researching Madame Cadillac, and I remember I remember some references to it, and it was kind of like really interesting. And I did not know that there were modern. There's all sorts of sightings and modern sightings. I was not aware of the modern site. So let everybody know what is that.
So the Nain Rouge is Detroit's most infamous, sorry, John Tenney, um, hometown hero, anti-hero, villain. It really depends on who you are and what your idealization ideals are about the Nain Rouge. But the Nain Rouge is a little red colored imp that Cadillac, who founded Fort Detroit, was warned about way back when he was in Quebec.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Because I
the
know the Algonquin
sorceress,
I know there's a big tradition between the Algonquin and the Hurons
yeah.
about that.
So a sorceress had attended, or a fortune teller had attended the ball that he was at, read his fortune, told him, because his question to her was, "Will I attain great wealth for me and um, my offspring?" And she said, "Yes, you will, unless you anger the Nain Rouge, then all is lost." And what does he do? He gets into Detroit, gets Fort Detroit going. He's taxing the people. He's trading booze and tobacco with the Native Americans. And as he's raising more and more taxes and people are grumbling about it, what does he do? But he goes out on a stroll with his wife and he encounters the Nain Rouge. He gets into a stick fight with the Nain Rouge, beats the Nain Rouge, and humiliates the Nain Rouge, and the Nain Rouge curses him. And then it's said that the Nain Rouge curses Detroit. And going back to even the time of Cadillac, Cadillac ended up dying penniless in the streets of France,
Right. Right.
which is where he was originally from. He had attained great wealth here in the United States, but he goes on to die penniless in France. And then the city of Detroit itself goes through um, a great fire that burns it almost to the ground and it recovers. And then you have the race riots,
Mhm.
where it said that the Nain Rouge was dancing down the streets, encouraging people to burn buildings. But before that, you have um, the battle at the River Raisin,
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
where the river ran red with blood, and it said that the Nain Rouge was dancing on the banks.
Yeah, the
You have
wasn't
um,
it that he was dancing on the bodies of the British soldiers or something? Was that at the Battle of Raisin? I
yeah,
remember some of it.
there was um, and my mind is drawing a blank, but one of the forts in Detroit was given up by its commanding officer because he claimed that he saw the Nain Rouge running along the battlements, and he just, yeah, we're screwed, give up. He was later court-martialed for
Oh my
cowardice.
gosh. Oh my
But
gosh.
so you can see this history, and then so you've got the race riots where he's dancing down the streets, and in I believe it was the 1970s, some um some electrical line workers were working on electrical lines, and they look down, they see what they think is a small child climbing up the electrical pole underneath of them. And they're like, "Kid, get down before you fall and you hurt yourself." And then this thing looks up at them, and they're like, "That's no kid. It's the Nain Rouge." And it laughs at them, and it jumps down and goes scurrying off. And the very next day, Detroit is hit by an ice storm and goes through a 3-day blackout
Oh my god.
during an ice storm.
Oh my god. I
So
never heard
now,
that one. That's new. That's a new one for me. That's cool.
so now every March, the third Sunday of every March, we have a great parade where we now honor the Nain Rouge and invite him to be a part of Detroit. He is, part of this huge march that goes down the street and ends at the Masonic Temple in Detroit. And it's all of Detroit coming together to celebrate the Nain Rouge. And everybody's dressed in red, and there are floats, and there are bands, and there are people marching in celebration of
Wow.
this creature that people might say, oh, it's just folklore. Well, then why do we have a parade celebrating him?
Listen, we don't want to take chances, okay? That's the way I would be thinking about it. That's that's unbelievable. Do you think that uh popular culture needs something like the Nain Rouge in order to have like a morality play?
I do, because there are spirits, there are Manitou, there are powers in nature that we
Mhm.
as human beings will never control. We might try to understand, but we will certainly never have full control over. And things like the Nain Rouge, things like the Great Manitous, teach us our place in the world. And for as powerful as we are quite vulnerable in a rainstorm or a hailstorm, a windstorm, hot temperatures, freezing cold temperatures. We're powerful in our own,
Mhm.
protected elements. But you put us out in nature, and we as human beings are just as vulnerable as the animals.
Even more so. Even more so. Because we don't have the instinct that they have.
Right.
We have learned instinct. That's a little bit different than what they do. I can't believe it. This hour is like zipping. Shaitan, see, you know
No,
what? This is like insane because I've you're good. Would you come back on?
of course, of course, of course.
Okay,
Anytime
because we
you want me as a guest, just say, Chatan, would you please come back on the show? And I will say, yes, Tim, I will be there.
You're the best because it's like this is insane because of all the stuff that we are. I knew that we had a lot in common, but I didn't realize just quite as much as we do have in common. That's phenomenal. What's it? What now? What is Shetan Noir up to? Where are you going to be? Talk
Oh
about
my
books.
goodness.
Let's listen. Listen. Now is your time.
Okay.
I because it's this is all about you now. This is all not about me.
Okay.
This is all about you.
Well, if you're here in Michigan, you can catch me at library presentations around Michigan. I normally post them on my Facebook page that you can find Chetan Noir. Um, I do own Squatch GQ publications, so that is 4 magazines that I try to put out quarterly. But as we mentioned earlier, it depends on the willingness of people to actually fill in their interviews and get them back into the magazine. So those 4 magazines are Cryptozoology Digest, Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Magazine, Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures Magazine, Rockhound and Prospector Magazine. I am also helping to film 2 separate documentaries with crews on Dogman from different perspectives. Their different perspectives. I hold true to my own. So I will be filming on those. I will be coming up at in Virginia at the East Coast Bigfoot Conference at Waivers Cave Community Center. That is in July, or I mean in June on Father's Day weekend. You can catch me at Mid Michigan Paracon talking about
Yay!
cryptids, and my Paracon up in Sault Ste. Marie at the end of August talking about cryptids. So you can catch
Yay!
me at those locations. Tim will be there. It'll be a fun weekend. Come out and join the show. It's always fun. And I am on various podcasts. You can catch my podcast at 5:30 every Wednesday on either my YouTube channel, which is Into the Liminal Abyss on YouTube, or it does live broadcast sometimes on Facebook. So you would just have to watch my page for that. And if I'm not at those things, you can catch me at UKDC dog shows as I'm running around putting group placements on my blue and tan champion miniature pinscher.
Oh my gosh. You're amazing.
Thank
You're
you.
amazing. You're just amazing.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, I have one question that I save for my favorite guests.
Okay.
Okay. Now I asked this question like to Jeff Belanger because I've known Jeff. Jeff and I go back 20
Just
years already.
awesome. Just so cool.
Yeah, Jeff and I, I think he knew me when I had hair. I'm not sure, but I think he might have known me when I used to have hair. Um, and some Kat Weedman and that, I've known her for many, many years. But I would like to go and I'd like to ask you this one. And this is one that I like to pull out on guests and make them think a little bit.
Okay.
You all set?
Yes.
We deal with all sorts of stuff out there. We deal with the wonderment of the world. We deal with so much that goes on around us that it can be mind-boggling sometimes. So, having said all that, having experienced everything you've experienced, having learned everything that you've learned, having seen everything that you've seen, what's the one thing? I wouldn't say one thing. What's the epitaph that you would like to have on your tombstone?
Oh my gosh.
That's a good one, isn't it? It's one of my favorite
Okay.
questions.
I've got it because it's something that I say in my podcast every week. And that is go out there and explore this world and stay curious.
I love that. I love that. That is, you know what? That is probably one of the best ones I've heard. And what's so neat about it is the fact that so many people, again, we keep going back to the same, that same idea that so many people have lost the wonderment in their lives. And in order to go and recapture that, you've got to get out there and you've got to
Hmm.
actually you've got to get your hands dirty.
You
And
got to become passionate or
yes,
curious about something and go explore it, go research it, go fill your mind, your heart, your soul with wonderment and just enjoy your life.
Exactly. And the one thing that I have learned over the years is that, you know how many people have come up to me and said, "Oh, well, you're lucky. You got a couple TV shots, or you got this, or you got that, and you were able to go. They took you to these places. You went to A, B, C, and D. I've always wanted to go there." Well, I'm going to be
And
totally
go.
honest. Well, here's the other thing. Well, they always say, "Well, we can't afford it." That's the second thing usually comes out. You know as well as I do, where there's a will, there's a way. And we all go. And I am the biggest proponent of finding the mysteries in your own hometown and start from there and build out and build out and build out. And I'm a huge proponent of the one tank getaway. I'm a huge proponent
Yep.
on unpacking your lunch, looking for things, watching for free days at museums and historical sites,
Yeah.
and becoming a part of it. And a lot of people kind of sit there and go, they got real quiet because they think that, well, I want to go looking for Bigfoot. I'm going to need, a sonic ear. I'm going to need this IR camera. Ghost hunters. I'm going to need the best recorder out there. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. I'm going to need this box. Here's the thing. I mean, there's so much that you can do. You can get for free or cheaply. I'm one of, and people laugh at me because I pick up change off the ground, and I pick up nickel bottles because I use all that
Yes.
to pay for a lot of a lot of my adventures.
Hmm.
And when you start looking in your own backyard, people are amazed at what can be found out there. And to me,
Yes.
that brings pride, but it brings such a love of where you live. And I've had chances to go to England, which I won't go. I don't like to fly anyway. But
See, I don't
you know
mind flying. I like flying.
I listen, when you
I love
spend
driving
28
too, but
when you spend 28 hours with John Zaffis, you turn you John Zaffis and Patty Negri, a psychic, a demonologist, and a witch, all got trapped in the men's room in Detroit
I
airport last
remember
year.
that. Oh my God, I remember that because we were getting updates and we're like, well, they're still trapped in the men's room at Detroit,
Yep, that,
airport. And we're
that's
like,
us.
are they going to make it? Are they going to make it?
Oh, and the best part is coming home. I missed my flight at like midnight out of LaGuardia by
So,
3 minutes. So I got stuck. I got stranded in New York City. So it's like one of those. It's like one of those things. I'm driving this year. But I can't. It's like I'm not a great flyer. But I got to thank you so much for coming on. Oh, Shatan,
oh,
it was
you
so
are
wonderful.
welcome.
Oh,
I so enjoyed it. It was like you said, an hour wasn't long enough. It was so much fun.
it
Thank
really
you.
this. You know what I didn't know which way I was going to go with my questioning, and I said, I'm just going to throw three basic questions at you, and I know that you can handle them. I've seen you in action, so we don't have to worry about that stuff. And it was just wonderful. Stick around, just stay on, so I can thank you properly off air.
Oh, you sure?
And everybody, her name is Shetan Noir. Remember it. Write it down. You got little sheets of paper. Get your little pencils out, Crayolas, whatever you want to use. Write it down because you'll hear more from her. I swear to God, you will. Stick around. I'll be right back. Was this not? Oh, there you are. Should be me. There we go. Was this not a great show? She is probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know within this genre. I absolutely loved it. And what I loved about her is she's multifaceted because we live in a situation in a world where everything is not we don't look at everything. We don't gestalt the photo. We don't go and we don't look at everything at once. What we're doing is breaking things into little pieces. So cryptozoologists and paranormal people and ufologists, we're not getting that. We're not getting it all. We're not looking at it as a whole picture. And there's so much more wonderment when we look at that. So guys, remember, keep your eyes open and come back next week, Wednesday, Black Cat Lounge, here with the Elite Meat. Where else? Next to the dumpster transfer station. It's the most fragrant place in town. Ciao, guys. See you. Take care. Thanks for being here. See you soon. Hope to see you in Mansfield. Bye-bye.